Ya, dengan senang hati saya akan membuat satu introduction singkat mengenai isu yang menjadi hangat baru-baru ini. BBC Indonesia membuat satu reportage, satu artikel mengenai sejarawan memprotes penyebutan nama negara Inggris di Indonesia. Saya salah satu dari sejarawan yang memprotes dengan rekan saya, Christopher Dorinier Thompson, mengenai isu dari memakai istilah Inggris untuk menyebutkan semua kepulauan Britania Raya. Kepulauan Britania Raya adalah satu gabungan antara tiga kerajaan dan satu kepangeranan. Tiga kerajaan adalah Inggris, Skotlandia, Irlandia, dan kepangeranan dari Wales. Ya? Dan itu disebutkan di dalam istilah sekarang the negara Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Ya, kalau kita memakai istilah Inggris secara formal, kalau secara sehari-hari itu lain hal, tapi secara formal untuk mengkisahkan kepulauan Britania Raya itu jelas salah dan meremehkan orang-orang ya seperti saya yang ayah dari Irlandia dan ibu dari Skotlandia yang sebenarnya bukan etnis Inggris tapi adalah warga dari Britania Raya dari areal-areal yang bergabung seperti Skotlandia 1707 dengan satu sepakatan antara politisi di Edinburgh dan politisi di London untuk membuat satu gabungan formal, the Act of Union. Dan sejak itu tidak lagi Inggris tapi Great Britain dan belakangan Northern Ireland sebab sesudah perang kemerdekaan di Irlandia antara 1919 dan 1921, 26 kabupaten counties dari selatan menjadi negara berdaulat, Republic of Ireland. Ya, jadi mari kita simak dengan video yang singkat ini yang dibuat dengan sangat jeli dan bagus oleh asisten saya di Bandung, Fero, mengenai latar belakang dari isu yang baru saja terkuak. Isu yang merujuk kepada nama dari Inggris, dari pelaut Porto, salah satu slang yang dipakai oleh pelaut pada abad 16 waktu berkumpul banyak saudagar dari Eroppa di Banten dan di Melaka dan lain tempat untuk dagang merica, dagang rempah-rempah. Dan ini masuk di dalam khazanah dari bahasa sehari-hari di sini di Indonesia sampai sekarang. Tapi kalau kita ke Malaysia atau ke Singapura, tidak mungkin orang Singapura akan merujuk kepada High Commission sebagai English High Commission atau di Kuala Lumpur English High Commission, itu British High Commission. Ya? Jadi mudah-mudahan dari sejak sekarang ada semacam education, ada semacam pendidikan, ada semacam kesadaran dari warga Indonesia bahwa memakai Inggris dalam bahasa sehari-hari tidak ada problem. Tapi memakai Inggris untuk merujuk secara formal kepada negara dan kepulauan dari Britania Raya adalah satu kesalahan. Jadi mari kita simak video yang mungil dan sangat menggugah hati kita sekarang. Monggo.
Okay, so how can a place have different names in different languages? Take Japan, for example. In Indonesian, they call it Jepang. But in Spanish, they say Japon. Quite a different sound, right? What's even cooler is that in Japanese, they call their own country Nihon or Nippon. A world of difference, isn't it? Now, how about Germany? In Indonesian, they say German. But in Francais, it's Allemagne. And in Japan, it's Deutsch. Isn't that wild? I promise you, there are some mind-blowing facts behind this, and they all lead back to a cool story. It's like a game of telephone played across centuries. One of the most extreme cases is this: a sovereign state with multiple territories the size of the United Kingdom. But in Indonesia, they call the entirety only by the name of a small section of it, Inggris. For England, which is just one small country in the UK, and the UK is actually made up of 4 different countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But as it turns out, this isn't just a mistake. You would call it a living fossil, an ancient term left over from the colonial era that still sticks around today. And this time, I'm going to break the 4 points that make this a fact that most people don't notice or even care about. And one of them will even make you challenge the true meaning of a country's name. So, just imagine if we called the United States just California. Super weird, right? It's almost sound like an insult, doesn't it? Well, situations like this really do exist in other parts of the world, and the story behind it is amazing. Seriously, no lies. All right, let's break down how all this happened, so listen closely. Point 1. The origin of Indonesians calling the United Kingdom just by their English country. The common term used by the Indonesians is Inggris. Well, that sounds like English, right? That's exactly where it came from. But wait a minute. The UK isn't just England. It has England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, which has 6 counties. Don't confuse this with the Republic of Ireland with 26 counties. Don't get them mixed up, otherwise people would get angry about it. Anyway, the UK has 4 countries under a single monarchy. So why is it that Indonesians call them by the name of only one of its parts? Inggris. Curious, right? Here's the story. The origin lies in the historical records. Long before our time, during the era of the spice trade and the colonial ships that come to Indonesia to profit in the monopoly of nutmeg and cloves. Back then, around the 16th century, before the modern UK colonial empire was even born, Portuguese sailors and traders who were a major power in Europe at the time traveled the world, reaching the Malay archipelago. They came to trading hubs like Banten or Malacca, which were famous in Europe for pepper and nutmeg. Now, who did they encounter here from the islands of Northern Europe trying to trade these things from the Malayans? Ships and traders from England. At that time, in what is now part of the United Kingdom, Scotland was still an independent country. Ireland was also a separate entity, so the Portuguese used the term for the English who traded with them, which was Inggris. Not to be confused with the modern Ingles, but the older version used by the 16th century Portuguese sailors. When they came to the Malay region, the term was absorbed into the Malay language, which was the lingua franca of traders in the area at the time. Later on, the Dutch colonial authorities of the East Indies chose the Riau Lingga dialect of Malay to be the standard Malay in the Dutch East Indies, arguing it was a smoother dialect than the market language used in Batavia. Prince Diponegoro himself even called this Malay dialect Bahasa Pitik, which means chicken language. He didn't like it because he considered it impolite and unfit for conversation with Javanese nobility like himself. Anyway, Charles Adrian van Ophuizen then standardized this Malay dialect into a Latin script, which would later be formalized as Bahasa Indonesia. The term Inggris thus became commonly used, even to this day. Point 2. The global political situation has changed since the term Inggris spread to the Malay region. Scotland was officially unified into Great Britain through the Act of the Union of 1707. Remember this date, this is a key term. Basically, Scotland was colonized, but that's a story for another video, so subscribe. Almost a century later, Ireland was incorporated through the Act of Union of 1800. And then after the Irish War of Independence in 1919 to 1921, Southern Ireland formed its own state, the Sejarah Éireann, the Irish Free State, in December of 1922. And so, the UK's official name today becomes the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So keep in mind that year of 1707, guys. It's a turning point in the story of the Great Britain. Since then, England can no longer be used to refer to the entire Union. And indeed, over there in Europe, they don't use it that way anymore. But the habit in Indonesia of saying Inggris just kept on going. It's a hard habit to break, even though it makes non-English British people, especially those from Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, feel a bit uncomfortable to be called English. It's like calling someone from Sunda as Javanese by calling their country, Indonesia, as Java. It doesn't make sense, right? And the problem is, language is influenced by habit. People just keep using the familiar term, Inggris, as though the meaning has broadened. It used to be just for England, but it's now for the entire United Kingdom. It's easier than having to find a new term, especially one that comes from a political situation so far away that has nothing to do with regular Indonesians. It's simple, so why make it complicated, right? Kau tahu tak, insan Malaysia yang still cakap Melayu pun, kini dah tak panggil England. Semua sebut British ya kini ya? Okay. But here's the thing. Is Indonesia the only language that does this? Not at all. Check out the Turkish. They say İngiltere. Check out the Turkish. They say İngiltere. In Mandarin Chinese, they say Ingko. In Korean, they say Yongguk. Even the Tagalog in the Philippines has a term similar to Inggris. So a lot of places still refer to Great Britain using the word for England still. The number of people who use the term this way is close to 2.8 billion people, almost half the world. Pretty wild, right? But in Europe, it's a different story. In French, where they say Royaume-Uni, or in German, Vereinigtes Königreich, or in Spanish, Reino Unido. So most European languages prefer terms that literally means United Kingdom, which makes sense. But back to Indonesia, calling the UK Inggris is indeed unique, and this is where it becomes a topic of discussion. On the one hand, it's a habit. Everybody knows it, everybody uses it, it feels like a part of everyday life. On the other hand, there are valid reasons to change. Within Great Britain itself, people from Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland often do not like being called English. They have their own distinct identities. Some even say that the using English is like we're still speaking the tongue of colonizers who first came to this archipelago and enslaved the Indonesians for wealth. And it ignores the diversity within the political union of the Great Britain and Ireland. To give you another analogy, take the island of Taiwan, for example. What would happen if we called all of China just Taiwan? Weird, right? Even though Taiwan is just one island of the Republic of China, not to be confused with the People's Republic of China. So this map is the ROC claim of the entirety of China. They still call it China, they don't call it Taiwan. And that's the reason why officially Taiwan is still known as the Republic of China. It's just like how England is only one part of the larger union over there. It's so strange. The issue is exactly the same. The monarchy isn't just England, just as China is made up of many ethnic groups and languages. The UK also has Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So should we just keep casually calling them English? It's not fair to the other nationalities in the UK. Besides, it makes us look like we don't know our history. And we're just insisting of using the word Inggris. There's a term for this. It's called ignorance. So what are the other options in Bahasa Indonesia? There's British and Britania Raya, which we sometimes still use, but that still refers to a geographical area, not the political entity. So yeah, it's not just about being polite, but also proves that if we understand the history and identity of other regions more deeply than mere surface details. Therefore, insisting that Inggris remains the most common term is like preserving a fossil left over from the global colonial era that's still embedded in our language. Here's another example. We don't call the Dutch the company. No. Back then, everyone in Indonesia calls them the company because they were subjugated by the East India Trading Company. When the Dutch came back after the British interregnum, people still call them the company. But now we don't do that anymore. We call them just the Dutch. So we know we can do this. It's been shown in our history that we did this. But for the term Inggris, this conversation is still ongoing. So, will old habits prevail, or will the call for greater respect slowly lead people to switch to British or Britania Raya? It's a fascinating debate between history, language, and identity in our shrinking world. What do you think? Should language stick to ingrained habits, even if they're not factually accurate? Or should it evolve to be more modern and culturally respectful? Write your opinion in the comments. I want to know what you all think. If you like historical perspective like this, be sure to like and follow this channel. We discuss unique things from our world. Thanks for watching. Pass it on to your friends and let's get the conversation going.